He's awesome. Thank you for having me. This is in English. I wish this is the first time I've ever really wanted to learn how to speak Russian or Ukrainian. So let's talk about building on teams. So what I'm really going to talk about is building for a collaborative experience. So this isn't team specific necessarily, but there's going to be a lot of things that are show you that building on teams is really awesome. So first of all, the new wave is not one-on-one chat. The new wave is in collaboration. So if you're building your app inside of a collaborative environment, you're going to have a lot more exposure from users to be able to provide yourself a viral uptake and get a lot more eyeballs on your apps. Can I get a raise of hands? How many people here are designers? Yay for you. People who are in IT who are developing apps for a line of business? Okay, I love you. So you and I can talk afterwards, but I'm gonna pivot to these guys because you have an opportunity to actually start this conversation with your users, and I'm gonna show you a few things at the end of this deck that to sort of get your ideas flowing. But collaboration in channels, sharing, being proactive in a channel, so the bots that Igor was talking about, and providing an opportunity for users to customize their experience is incredibly useful. If you're doing a one-on-one experience, you're creating a hole for your users, so don't be an app hole. A bot is not a scenario, and I cannot tell you how many times I've had this conversation with developers that, oh, I want to make a bot, and what is it that you're trying to solve? So start off with a user experience. What is your hero experience? Being able to have an elevator pitch and say, I am trying to solve this very specific problem, be narrow, is incredibly useful. If you have that elevator pitch, if you want to be able to have that conversation with somebody, I'm building here's an example. I'm building something that Michael can see all of his work items visually. That says what I'm not building. So you're not trying to boil the ocean. Is it going to solve a real problem? Is it something that is going to be used every day, or is it a one-off? A really good example is an approval scenario. How many people in here actually do approvals? 1, 2, 3. So we're talking about 2% of the entire population of this crowd. So probably not the first thing you'd want to build. What's your ROI on that? Finally, this is the model that I use when I'm actually trying to have a conversation about what to build. Get a whiteboard. Get 2 or 3 of your users in front of you and ask them questions about the workflow that you're trying to solve for. So you've identified a scenario or something that you're trying to solve. Literally go through and ask them, what do they do? What is your role? Articulate that right in front of them. Then walk through each step of the process that they're trying to solve. Write it down on a board. You're going to find that some of them are going to argue. That's great. That means that you don't have to second guess things. You can fail here much faster than you can fail in code, and it means that you don't have to write code to figure it out. Now, the little red marks on this are things where a user took an action or something is possible to automate. And those are great opportunities for us within a workflow within Teams or any other collaborative environment. Number 1 design tool. So we use Sketch. Some of us use Figma. I use a marker first because you can erase this very, very quickly. Knowing your users, basically asking questions instead of offering solutions. Hey, I'm going to build this thing. I know who I am, and I want to build something. Don't build this for yourself. Build it for somebody else. And make boxes. You can draw a box. It's not that hard. I do recommend that when you draw a box that you don't make the box before you write the words, because I end up erasing it half the time so I can get the entire word into the button. But all you're doing in this next step is taking that workflow that you documented in front of your users, and now you're going to say, what if we did it this way? I'm going to take one card at a time, one instance of a time of a response, either from a bot or in some other UI, and I'm going to show it to your users, and I'm going to ask you, what is the most important thing? Okay, that's the title. What is the next most important thing? That's the next line that you're going to, and again, if they're going to argue with each other, great. That's another iteration you didn't have to do in code. So one of the biggest things is getting that first date right. You can look good on paper, but if that first date is with a zombie and they want to eat your brains, you're never going to come back. The cost of switching is so low. You just get that one shot, right? So build an MLP. A lot of folks are talking about an MVP, a minimum viable product. I say build a minimum lovable product. I can build a car that only has 3 wheels, and I can navigate around Kiev, but I'd have to do it making left-hand turns the entire way. So build something that your users really love the first time, even if it's a small set, but something that actually solves that problem. Get a designer to do here's one right here, get a designer to do your icon. Don't just pull something off of the internet. Let's talk about some of the tools that you have. So Teams is really this opportunity to bring a whole bunch of experiences into the user's view. It's an immersive experience. It's a hub where you can bring in small elements of other UIs into the user's experience. It has personal apps and tabs and conversations, instant notifications, very structured ways to have a deep task view, so we're in these stage views. And it works pretty well on mobile, and it's getting better all the time on mobile. I use it on mobile almost exclusively when I'm traveling, for sure. Bot framework, messaging extensions, so the being able to share, and then finally, these customizable cards. We're going to go into those in detail. The first thing I want to talk about are tabs inside Teams, and so this is a big difference between us and a whole bunch of other applications. This is a place where you've got a large canvas to have a focused interaction with the user. You'll notice that we use tabs as navigation, so if you have tabs inside of the tabs, it's like tab pancakes. Don't do that. This is just a simple piece of UI that you're going to show to your user. And the question that you want to ask yourself is, what is the conversation about on that tab? Don't try and have an entire portal surface inside the tab, because it just makes for navigation problems, and it makes it hard for people to understand what to do when they reach that UI. Default states, deep linking, almost all of this stuff is online, so I'll tell you where to get that after this conversation. Bots. Everybody wants to do a bot. It's shiny, it's new. The very first thing you want to do with a bot is tell the user what to do with a welcome message. So if you don't have a great welcome message, the problem that you have now is like, hey, I'm the best bot in the world. Give me your Facebook password. It's just not going to happen. So what is the value exchange? Why am I actually going to take the time to interact with your UI? Taking a tour, unauthenticated tours. Even if you require a second level of authentication, if heaven forbid you're not using SSO, please use SSO. Taking an unauthenticated tour to really upsell the properties of your bot, of what the skills are that you're doing, that's so huge. Help the user understand what it is that you do. We use this hex so that you can know from 16 feet away that you're interacting with the machine. It's incredibly helpful because we're not going to be able to anticipate all the user's interactions with these chat interfaces. So I know that it's not that smart. Here's the things that it does. I'm going to be a little more forgiving in the interactions. But a crisp, decent icon is going to make a big difference. We support cards and graphics. I recommend that you use them. Up to 6 buttons. Don't use 6 buttons. We'll talk about cards in a second. This is the big deal. And so Igor actually talked about this in a little bit. It's training the bot to recognize the core interactions that you're looking for. We'll use an example of texting. I could say, text me, message me, MSG, TXT. Those are not synonyms you're going to find in a dictionary. You actually have to train your interface to understand those interactions. So training the natural language interface is actually part of the game with this. Those are the known knowns, the recognized questions. The recognized non-questions are things that are not actually about your entity. So they're not about the text message that you're trying to send. They're, hello, thank you. I was shocked when we did our first help bot. People said thank you. And our response to thank you was, I don't know what you mean. Try searching for teams or channels or something like that, which is just, it's not a great experience. The last one are unrecognized questions. The cat walked across the keyboard and hit enter. You're going to have to respond to those. How you respond makes a big difference. No personality. I don't know what you mean. Here are the results. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Boring. It's a bit hard for people to get their head around a chat interface that's not going to be at least pseudo-chatty. You can go way, way, way too far on the class clown. Unless your bot is about chat and being annoying, don't do that as well. I love the unflappable librarian. It's a great sort of premise to have when you're doing your writing. The example that I often give is I was in a library. A drunk guy came in, young woman who was the librarian. Do you have any beer? She turned that question that wasn't about library books into, no, we don't have any beer, but we have articles on beer in the periodical section, and we have reference on beer in the 900 section. So that's great. It's a great way to pivot back to the thing that your bot does. And your bot is capable of notifying users. This is something that is dangerous. You can wait, you can do what? Michael, a new work item, Michael. What ends up happening is if you send too many notifications to your user, they're going to become blind to your service, or worse, they'll just turn it off. So you have to be very, very careful. With Teams, we have a whole range of notification possibilities, the toast being the most in your face. Simply bolding a channel. If you're in a channel, you can mention specific users in a channel and only call their attention to it, but let everyone be aware that something has happened. One of the big differences with our system is that a bot can come along for the ride with a tab. So now I have a browsable piece of UI that works in sync with this chat interface. And so some people are going to be happy using a bot. You'll be surprised at how few people that is. What's great is having a tab that sits right next to it, a big user interface. I can actually hand off from a chat directly to that tab, so I can target the tab as a destination. Or better yet, I can have lists of items or larger UIs that sit inside of this larger canvas. And it's a great synergy. You can have multiple tabs that come along for the ride with a bot. And it covers a bunch of different demographics. The thing that I would say is don't make an assistant. Siri's an assistant. How awesome is that for you right now? If you're going to do everything, it's hard for me to know what to ask your bot when I start. Have a little personality, but don't go overboard. Maintain tone. If you're going to do these things, find somebody that you know that's a writer so that they know how to write with a persona in mind. And then for multi-turn experiences, which I don't recommend, and here's an example of why. You can, if you have to do a multi-turn experience, let the user sort of stumble through the first time, don't try to correct them, and then say at the end of it, you could have done this, so this is an opportunity for you to provide a learning experience. A multi-turn experience, if you're not, multi-turn experience, does anybody know what that is? Quick example. So I want to schedule a meeting. With whom? Michael Forney. Which Michael Forney? There's 5. Michael K. Forney, great. Oh, what time would you like to have that meeting? 1 o'clock. At this point, you could have filled this in a form. So, and then the other problem that you have with that scenario is like you don't know when I need to get out. So now the user actually has to say cancel, which just doesn't seem natural at all. All right, message extensions. I love these. They're incredibly versatile. People send links all the time. Let's actually send something that's a little more than a link, something that I can actually take action on. And so this is a card, so a piece of JSON that you can send as a user. It is relatively simple. So when you're writing these things, this is a simple lookup. I love having a default query on these, so when you hit that button, you're going to be able to see the things that you did recently. Because what is the likelihood I'm going to share something? It's the highest likelihood is something that I've just recently seen. And you can actually use your own service in a separate web page. And in fact, our Azure DevOps integration does this. If I was looking at a bug or was assigned a bug, those are the things that come up first. Those are the things I'm most likely to share. Now, I can still override that and use a search and look it up. I chuck it into the compose box. I can mention Igor. Hey, Igor, fix this now. It's super broken. Quit breaking stuff. So these guys are great. They are also available from our global UI. So there's a search that sits up on the top, the command box. So you're able to get that without even interrupting. You don't necessarily have to send this to somebody. You can get something just for yourself. All right, cards. I love cards. Well, cards eliminate this need for keeping state. They are able to interact directly with your service on the back end. Quick breakdown. We refer to this as envelope text, but if this is JSON, I can just say, title, subtitle, image URL, text, buttons. It is really that simple. So this is like the dumbest piece of HTML you've ever seen. It's a very easy markup. If you are going to send something and you send something in the envelope text, you're going to find that nobody's going to see it. So if you're looking at this right now, it's like, you probably missed that thing on the top. So that's great to have, but don't use actionable text that's sitting up there. Put that in your title. The bot framework cards, and these are the cards that work with a lot of the other services, so Slack, Teams, Skype Consumer. It's a great way to sort of leverage a whole bunch of other platforms if you want to build something once. The hero card on the left, the thumbnail card on the right. All I've done here is say hero card, and then all of the images that come through that are going to be they're going to be reformatted to fit that space. So there isn't a lot of extra work for you to do as a developer to build one of these guys out. Connector cards. This is kind of old technology. The Exchange team built some of these things. They used to call them agaves. I don't think you need to use these anymore because adaptive cards are totally kick-ass. This is an example. So how many people have seen an adaptive card before? Oh, dudes, buckle up. This is great. So I can send this card. This gray part that's down here, I wouldn't necessarily be exposed until the user takes an action. This is a card that allows me to send form elements, send something back to my service. I can refresh this card in space. They're really, really cool. What's also nice is that same layout that you see here, I can send it to Outlook. So now you've got something where it's like, hey, I've got some users that are sitting inside of Teams. I've got some users that are in Outlook. I can send virtually the same card. There's a slight change that you want to make on the button actions, but it's not very significant. Sign in. If you're doing this is almost a failure in my mind, but there's nothing you can do. This is the card you get. I don't recommend that you do sign out. Card collections are a whole different thing. So card collections are when I need to make a decision about one thing or another. One on the left is a carousel. When do I need to use a carousel? It's a discoverable interface. It's an exploratory interface. It's 5 foods you should be eating now. I have no idea what's coming next. Blueberries. This is great. I love blueberries. Swipe. Broccoli. Not so happy. Next one. Cauliflower. Lots of cruciferous vegetables. Oh, God. Okay. Not a great way to make a decision between flight 1 and flight 2. You really can't. You want to be able to compare those things side by side. This is the one connector card that I still like because the layout is very slick. This is a list. This is our digest card. And it allows you to have even these subsections where you're actually able to put a title. But again, this is a place where I can disambiguate A versus B. I have a clear way to see the difference between the two objects. This guy over here on the left is a list card that we use in our Who bot. It's specific to Teams, and it actually scrolls. So you can get up to 15 items in this. It supports up to 3 lines. It is incredibly useful. Anybody using Teams right now? Okay, so take a look at Who bot. Do a search. This is the list card that you're going to see in Who bot. And this guy over here on the right, this is actually something that's super easy. So if I were just to send you a message today, send another one right after that, send another one right after that. This is how it would orient. And we call this bubble merge. So all your bot is doing is sending card, card, card. We're not going to throw an avatar, and make all that extra vertical space happen. By the way, this is a hero card, and these are 2 thumbnail cards. The thumbnail cards just don't have an image specified, so we slide everything over. Here's the downside with cards. They're big. So if you're throwing a lot of cards in, and everybody's trying to have a conversation around those cards, they're scrolling back and forth trying to find the actual conversation. So you want to be very judicious about how many of these you're sending in. We see a lot of developers that are asking for, can you even make them bigger? And our customers are saying, can you make them smaller? Guess who we're listening to? So it's going to be the customer for sure. Don't put text in your graphics. Task modules, these are relatively new. This is a way for you to actually use our dialogue format. You can invoke these bad boys from a card or from a tab, and it allows you to host either an adaptive card or a piece of HTML directly in a modal dialogue inside of our world. This is a great way to have an interaction with your service without having to leave the context of the conversation. There are times when you do want to leave the context of the conversation, but this is just, hey, I need to do a quick interaction. The thing on the left over here, that's actually an adaptive card. So when you send your adaptive card, we just strip out the card part and make it look like a dialogue. Bob's your uncle. The thing that I love about these is that they consume our themes beautifully. They work relatively well on mobile as well. And if you're building in an environment where you have to be accessible, you have to have those high contrast themes supported. So if you're in government or you have some compliance restriction, that's a great way to go. It's easy. It doesn't require some heavy lifting. If you have something that's super specific, relatively complex, we do allow you to host an entire piece of HTML in here. The only downside is when this shows up in mobile, you have to think about how you're going to be responsive. So, message actions. This is misunderstood, but actually one of the coolest things that we've got. So, in this world, I can take a message that you sent and apply it to a service that he wrote, which is amazing if you have the right scenario. And again, start with the dang scenarios, otherwise you're just playing with neat features. The best way to use this, and this is not a requirement, is to actually send this through our natural language processing layer first, extract the entities, understand the intent that the user is trying to do, and then you're going to send that to your service with those entities that are called out. Now you know what to do with them. Confirm with a task module, the thing that we just showed. Here's what that might look like. So I take this message and I'm going to send it to a CRM opportunity. The thing that will save your life every time, because AI is scary and making suggestions is, making a suggestion, don't make a commitment. So in this world, hey, I'm going to still let you change things. I made some assumptions here. You can get rid of this if I got it wrong. And on the backside of that, if they do make those changes and you've got good telemetry, you can actually teach your model to work better. So this is a place where great design and making the back-end service work well or have a great synergy. So sometimes there is a need to have a personal one-on-one experience. One of the best ways to actually do this, and if you're using Teams right now, try playing around with Planner. This is a very good example. So as a design manager, I've got a bunch of employees that are working for me. I have a bunch of tasks that are assigned to me directly. And so I want to be able to see those tasks. But I also go and lurk and look at my direct reports and see what they're doing. And this is a great way for me to have deep, think of it as a hub and spoke. I have everything that I need in one place, but I can easily send myself off into these other channels very, very quickly and come right back. If you construct your personal app in that way, that is an incredible boon, and you're taking advantage of that collaborative experience and the viral adoption of your application. You're getting eyes. If you do this and you're only doing this as a one-on-one experience, now you've closed everything off. Now, as IT, one of the coolest things that we have available for you right now is that you can now pin your app to our app bar. So the advantage that you have over, let's say, somebody who's a third-party partner that's building on our services, you actually get to control what your users are going to see. And if I can tell you right now, if you have a personal app and it's stuck over here, everybody's going to be able to see it. So I'm going to run through a handful of scenarios that actually take these Lego blocks and assemble them in different ways. And hopefully this is a way for you to start thinking about how to take advantage of them for yourselves. So this is our tab. So I have a tab here with a little dashboard and a list. I can start a conversation here. And this is, so if you're not using Teams right now, this is how tabbed conversations work. And that conversation then resolves into a threaded model. What's interesting now is like, okay, I've got a bot that comes along for the ride with this. If I have notifications on my service, I can post those notifications directly to the tab conversation, which then moves that conversation and moves my service, the thing that the users are interacting with, because they're interacting with it, down into the forefront. So it's an incredibly useful way of using tabs. So this is sharing a sales report. You know when somebody has shared this. It will look great on mobile. Customizing an approval, so you could do an approval notification on this. I love the approval ones where you're sending something into, like, I'm posting something to social media and there's a bunch of legal people that have to approve that before I actually post it. So, you know, you can have one user do something independently, a bunch of other users see the impact of that and then take that approval. And so this is really thinking about the kind of teamwork that you have inside of your organizations. The personal app, we talked about this. So I'm in one team, I'm in another team, and I'm able to see everything in one place. This is using the global interaction, and this actually works today, so if you want to just use places, this is a great way to take a look at something without actually leaving your context. This is converting that chat into a sales opportunity, and this is the one that I think, this is one I want you who are in IT to pay the closest attention to, and I'm going to explain this in detail, and then we'll take some questions. This is from a personal app, and I actually want to onboard a team. So this is a project. So if you listen to the keynote, we talked about projects versus products, but this is a project. This is our task module. This is HTML. And what I'm doing in this task module is I'm saying, I want these managers to be associated with this team. I want these associate managers to be associated with this team. And there are some external partners that I actually want, some clients I want to be associated with this team as well. So this is everything. You can do this today. There's certain files, or maybe it's a certain project type, which is going to say, hey, I'm going to bring along some templates, some PowerPoint templates, or something else that you're using as part of your line of business. And I'm also going to say, I want this kind of a SharePoint portal. What then can happen, and let's say that you've got a welcome message that you want to key into that as well. So this is the big problem that I see with Teams deployments when people first start doing this. I get added to a team and I don't know what the hell to do. Oh, Michael, you got added to a team. Great. Why? This starts the conversation in the right place. So you're actually seeding your users with, here's what to do. Here's what we are going to do today. You can do this either as an HR scenario, so I'm onboarding new people, or you can say, I'm doing this as a project. The advantage of what we're doing in this is actually combining a whole bunch of different parts. So one is we're saying, here's membership, owners, so the managers, owners. You're actually assigning roles that are specific to teams. The next part of this is actually using teams, team templates. So in a team template, I can say this team has specific apps. It may also come along for the ride with specific files. So you can get your app installed, your line of business app installed out of the gate when you create this new team. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? No questions? Fantastic. I'm off the hook. Great. If anybody wants to talk to me after this, I'll be available all day.
It was amazing. Thank you so much, Michael.